I am joined by Robert Griffin III, James White, Field Yates Minakaims.
All right, so first play we're going to look at, 2nd and 2, one of the Patriots' first offensive plays.
Super slow today on this end, but it's Mike Kadlick and Tayler Kyles back with another episode of Patriots Daily here on the CLNS Media Network, powered by PrizePicks and Game Time. As always, we'll hear more from them later. But we got a mailbag for you today, folks. It's Wednesday. It's the turnover day, going from the Texans to the Jacksonville Jaguars. So we asked for some of your questions on Twitter. If you have any more, start dropping them in the chat right now. We're going to get to as many as possible over the next half hour, 35 minutes, while we have you here on this lovely Wednesday. But first, we're going to hit on a couple quick Patriots topics that came down today. Me and Taylor just got back from Foxboro a little while ago, spoke with Gerard Mayo. I almost just said Mac Jones, Taylor, but it's not Mac Jones. It is Drake May. And it's Drake May. Yeah, it seriously is. But it's Drake May's second start coming up this weekend in London. Jaylen Powell spoke today to Mark Daniels exclusively from Mass Live. Some comments from him that we want to react to. And also an ESPN way too early mock draft coming from Jordan Reed on ESPN Plus, who does a great job with his draft coverage. He's one of their sort of core guys now over there at ESPN. And I want to react to that one first, Taylor, because what they do, especially when they're this early in the season, is they basically just flip the standings and go from 1 to 32 that way. And right now, Patriots, according to standings, FPI, whatever ESPN uses, they would have the number 2 overall pick in the 2025 draft. And with that pick, Jordan Reed had them selecting none other than Colorado's Travis Hunter, wide receiver, cornerback, connoisseur, if you will, arguably, at least arguably to Alex Barth, who's obsessed with Ashton Jeanty from Boise State, arguably the best player in college football. I am one who says that Travis is the best player in college football. I think he's the Heisman front runner, plays both sides of the ball every single snap for Deion Sanders, Colorado Buffaloes, and Jordan Reed had the Patriots taking him at number 2. Now, some banter back and forth today between some of our beat buddies, you, myself, Barth, Brian, Evan, that little group of contingents, and a lot of people saying it's crazy. So, and you're on that side, I think. So I want to hand it over to you first. Why should the Patriots not draft Travis Hunter with the 2nd overall pick, if that is the position that they're in?
So when Bill Belichick actually broke it down, he looked at a lot of the receiving class, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, and he mentioned what I've been saying, like we've been talking about Travis Hunter and all these guys, and I said, I really think that he's a cornerback because when you look at him, he kind of looks like Tyquan Thornton, except not as tall. Like he's a thin guy, and I really worry about, obviously, like crazy stamina to be able to play back on defense and offense, obviously. That's not going to happen in the NFL, though. Nobody's doing that. There's way too much punishment on your body. I don't care what position you're in. No one's playing wide receiver.
Let them do it.
I know it sucks, but like we're not talking Deion Sanders here. Like obviously is coach and everything, but like dudes aren't built like that anymore. Right. Very, very different kind of game. So my big thing with Travis Hunter is I just think he's too small to hold up as a wide receiver, as a guy who may have to go up and catch balls and fall down. Like think about Devontae Parker past couple of years, really throughout his career. Then Tyquan Thornton. Those guys, when they go up for passes and they fall down with Parker, it was his game. And just all that contact eventually just weighs on you. And then we've seen with Tyquan Thornton, where against the Packers in a joint practice last year, he goes up for a pass, falls on his shoulder, and gets hurt.
Right.
Now, obviously, that can happen on both sides of the ball. But as a wide receiver, you can't really make a ton of business decisions. Like you can choose, I'm going to go down or I'm going to go out of bounds, kind of like Tyler Lockett. But as a cornerback, you're not expected to make tackles quite as often. So you're not really taking on as much contact. That's why I really think he's a better fit at cornerback. And also just corner is such a difficult position. If you can play corner at a high level, I think you should probably stick there. I think Christian Gonzalez was in a similar spot where I know Coach Flight mentioned that he was playing receiver and they saw him play corner and they were like, whoa. No. You're going to stick with the defensive backs. Right. So as talented as he is, obviously, I do not think he can hold up as a wide receiver. So if he's not a wide receiver for you, which is one of the 2 positions I'd be okay with the Patriots taking in the first round, he's still a cornerback. I don't think you take a cornerback. As much as I would love to see him and Christian Gonzalez locking down receivers every week, I just don't think that that's nearly important enough for the Patriots to go after with their first round pick. So obviously, Travis Hunter's a fantastic player, but the Patriots have much bigger priorities. Get Ted McMillan. I think if there's a tackle you really like at that point in the top 10, if they're still there, take that guy. You can't go taking a cornerback.
So I agree that they probably shouldn't take Travis Hunter with the second pick. Like, I get all of that logic and all of that reasoning. However, I just don't think it's as insane as some people, because he is the best player in college football. He is one of the better cornerbacks in the nation, and he's one of the better wide receivers in the nation. So, like, you bring him in and you see what you have on him and you see what happens. And now, realistically, if they do have the set, like, I don't think they should do it, but I just don't think it's that crazy, because it's not like they're reaching for a guy at the top of the draft, right? He's going to go within those first couple picks. Some team is going to take him and try and use him and try and make him a superstar, no matter what, what phase of the game they do it in, right? And so if the Patriots were to do that, I don't think I would necessarily think it's an insane move. But if they do have the second overall pick and they do have all of these, I see that. It's insane from the chat. Who's going to play offensive line? Now, I don't want to just say they'll figure it out, because I do think that if they do have the second pick, they should ultimately trade back, go for, like you said, a Ted McMillan from Arizona, or take one of the two offensive tackles in Kelvin Banks and Will Campbell. So it wouldn't be the smartest decision, but they are also in need of a wide receiver, and Travis Hunter has shown that he can play wide receiver at an elite level in college football. Now, so did Tyquan Thornton, and so have other guys who become busts in the NFL who are on the smaller side. Xavier Worthy, again, I'm not saying Xavier Worthy's a bust just yet, but he's on the smaller side, and he's shown that it's been difficult. There was a couple preseason clips that I know you posted. I think you posted on Twitter.
He got rocked because they tried to press him, and he was just
absolutely smoked off the line of scrimmage. So, like, it's going to be a challenge for him to come to the next level. Now, this might be the crazy part that I think of Travis Hunter, and I know we're trying to do quick hitters here, but I still wonder, like, look, he's playing every single snap in Division I big time college football. Why can't he do it in the NFL? Like, and I'm not saying you're giving me the look. Every single play is a force, but he's not gonna, like, he's playing every single snap at wide receiver for Colorado. Put him in your wide receiver rotation and maybe play him in different sort of packages on defense, and let him do both and let him shine at both. And kind of, you don't want to spend a second overall pick, though, on a gadget player on both sides of the football. You want a guy who's going to play every single snap on one side of the ball. So I do understand it's a tricky situation, but at the end of the day, he's super talented. He's the best player in the country, and he's going to go in the top 5. So why not have the Patriots do it?
Well, first off, he's a one-dimensional receiver. Like, as talented as he is, he runs like 2 or 3 routes. Yeah. So to be a great NFL player, you need a lot of time at one spot. Like, think about the practice week. He's going to split time between receiver and cornerback as a full-time player on both sides of the ball. That's not going to happen.
But he's doing it right now in college. Like, he's doing it now, so he's used to it.
Again, as a wide receiver, though, he's very underdeveloped. Like, he's a very natural player. He's got great ball skills. He's got speed, all of that. But you would need to fully commit to playing one of those. And I think Belichick mentioned he kind of likened him to Marcus Jones, where he's a very good defensive back who can also, give you some offensive production and gadget plays. That might work, but he's not going to play full-time on both sides of the ball. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, you're probably right. All right, let's move on.
Deion didn't play full time on both sides of the ball. He contributed on offense because I think they had injuries or something like that. So, it's just multi-sport athlete is what Deion was. But yeah, that's not how the NFL works.
No,
that's too much punishment. These guys are too good. That's just not feasible.
I think we can both agree that it's going to be exciting to see what happens with Travis Hunter at the next level. But I think we both also agree that we probably don't want it to be the Patriots that have to try and decide what exactly is going to happen, because he's a hell of a player, but it's going to be a tough dilemma, and he's going to go at the top of the first round. And it's not Travis Hunter hate. I'm reading this isn't hate. I've said it. He's going to win the Heisman. He's the best player in the country. He's incredible, and he does both at an elite level. It's just difficult to see it translating fully on both sides at the next level. So let's continue on. Let's talk about another Patriots, or not another Patriots wide receiver, but the Patriots wide receivers currently on the roster, and that's Jaylen Powell, who Gerard Mayo talked about it. I believe it was after Sunday's game or maybe Monday morning at one of his press conferences post-Texans game, and said that Jaylen Powell has a mental hump to get over in order to eliminate the dropped passes that he's had over the last couple weeks. Taylor, we had the numbers on yesterday's film show. Not off the top of my head, don't remember them, but basically weeks 1 through 3, Polk was super consistent, catching a majority of his targets. And over the last 3 weeks, he's caught, I believe, 5 out of 19. So not great from his end. But Jaylen Polk actually spoke today to Maps Live's Mark Daniels saying, I'm not dealing with the mental problems at all. And even said that he has the best hands in the NFL despite all of the drops. So Tayler, your immediate reaction to Jaylen Polk's comments today with Mark Daniels?
I think he needs to stop being so vocal, to be honest. And I'm not Mr. like silence players or anything, but This is the second time he's made a comment. Obviously, there was in the Dolphins game when he thought he got both feet down, he was very adamant that he was in and all that. And it's like, nah, man, I'm sorry. By the letter of the law, you were not. So maybe the rookie, back off a little bit, show a little more humility, I think. And I don't like telling people what to say, but it's just because it's not true. Like, you don't have the best hands in the NFL. You've been in the NFL for 6 weeks in terms of the regular season. Like, bro, like kind of ease off that a little bit. And I have the numbers here. So he's been targeted 16 times since week 4. He's caught 5 of those passes. He had 2 drops on 3 targets against the Texans, and we broke it down on our show. Make sure you check out. We talked about how Drake May is help unlocking the sophomore receivers, but the rookie receivers obviously aren't really playing well enough for the coach's liking. And part of that is because not only was he dropping passes, he also ran the wrong route one time, and another time didn't look at Drake May on the last play of the game for the offense. For whatever reason, Drake basically had to throw blind and took a hit because his receiver kind of hung him out to dry. So I just disagree with that. Now, they're not counted as drops by PFF because against the 49ers, he had one punched out. I think it was similar. He had 2 drops against the 49ers. I don't know why they didn't call the second one because he extended it, bounced off his hands on a dig, and almost got intercepted. I don't know why that didn't count. But he also had a drop against the Dolphins where, Jalen Ramsey was also right there and he was making contact. But if you're Jaylen Polk, like, you're not going to get a lot of separation. You need to make the catches. And then the first drop, it's all these hitches. Like, I feel like almost every single one is a curl or a hitch where he's trying to sell vertical, come back to the ball. First time it's kind of contested, deeper downfield, he drops it. But the second drop that he had was bad. He's open, not very far downfield, just flat out dropped the ball. Whether he's got like a mental hurdle, maybe he doesn't see it that way and he was maybe offended by the wording. We don't know the tone that he used. We just read it, so not totally sure. But yeah, no, Jaylen Polk does have an issue. He needs to be more consistent. And whether he agrees or not, we may end up seeing it in the lineup because we've seen these coaches are not hesitant to make you play less. And we're already seeing Jaylen Polk. He played 55 snaps against the 55. He played 55 snaps against the Dolphins, 40 last week against the Texans. And you know who snap count is going up? Kendrick Bourne. So it's like they don't need him in the rotation. Obviously, he's talented. We want to see the guy thrive. But, I mean, like, he's got to also own up. He's not playing well enough.
No, I get that. And I think, realistically, him saying that he has the best hands in the NFL, and I think that's more of just I'm uber confident in myself, right? And I'm not going to let anybody else tell me that, I can't do this. And so on one hand, it's like, okay, he's got, he believes in himself. And I think that's a good thing to have instead of, he's not feeling sorry for himself. He's not sitting there and saying, yeah, I stink and I need, like, no, I can do this. I just need to get through it. I got nothing going on, in my head. But at the same time, you're right. You do have to own up to it and be like, look, I messed up and I'm going to get better from it. And here's why, because I do have this confidence in myself. So it is sort of a messaging thing, but I think you're right where, you kind of got to back it up before you start saying you have the best hands in the NFL. Now, another thing he mentioned is that he's sort of waiting for an opportunity to get better, but he's also been limited in what he's able to do on the field. And Polk was playing a majority of the Z receiver role to start the year, and that's sort of where he had all the success. And again, it wasn't.
We saw the flashes.
Yeah, flashes. Success is maybe a little strong because he hasn't been great this year, but that's where we saw the flashes and more consistency in targets. Last couple weeks, Kendrick Bourne comes back. He sort of rotates and starts playing in more of the X receiver role, and that's where he seemingly sounds like his role has been limited. So do you think that needs to change in order for Polk to get better? Do you think it's a scheme thing? Do you think it's a fit in this system? Why do you think Jaylen Polk feels like he's limited in what he can do?
Yeah, last week, friend of the show, Matt Harmon, really hit it on the head of reception perception that Jaylen Polk is a Z. He's a slot. We already knew when he came out of the draft that he wasn't an ideal X receiver because he's not going to create a ton of separation. He's not exceptionally big, and he's not exceptionally fast, but he is a good football player. Now, I think part of it is the fact that, like, Mayo also touched on blocking. He raved about Polk's blocking when they drafted him, but he hasn't really made a lot of impact plays in that regard. You know who has? Kayshon Boutte, the guy who now in a lot of those or in some of those 3 receiver sets is the Z receiver. So he's been making the blocks, and he's close to the line of scrimmage and close to the play. So because he's been blocking well, yeah, you want him in that role. And then Kendrick Bourne, obviously a veteran, he knows what to do, and he's been a good blocker in the past. So they've really been the main Z's the past couple weeks, or at least last week, because as we know, Kendrick Bourne really just got his feet wet against the Dolphins. But yeah, he's not built to play X, because at X, he's basically just running goes, slants, and hitches. Like, that's the entire route tree, because you're near the sideline. You can't really run a ton of outbreaking routes unless you're closer inside the numbers. But with their scheme, that X is usually outside the numbers. So, yeah, he is limited schematically because he doesn't have the field to work with like he would more often as a Z or in the slot. But at the same time, bro, like, no block, no rock. Like, you got to earn that spot. Kayshon Boutte's outplaying you. Kendrick Bourne is established on this team. You need to earn a role. So, yeah, I absolutely agree that it's not the easiest position for him to play X because it's not a natural fit. But if you have other guys that are doing their jobs better, and the Z role is going to be the one where you typically see more, throws on play action, RPOs and things like that, you may be more involved than you would at X. So, that's really just what it comes down to. And
I wonder too, Taylor, and this is sort of going to be our last segment until we break for a second and get into the mailbag. But I wonder if that turns into Jaylen Powell, frankly, being benched right now, somebody who they can't trust, who he's not catching the football, he's not running the right routes all the time. Because Gerard Mayo mentioned today that they will be making some lineup changes and shakeups because they're just not getting it done. And there's guys out there that they don't have confidence in doing the right things. He mentioned
really quick. I will say to that point, I feel like that's more about the defense.
Okay. That's
offensive shakeups could be there as well. But I do think just because Javon Baker hasn't proved it either, Tyquan Thornton was a healthy scratch after playing one snap. So it's like, they're also not really flushed with options at wide receiver. I think they're still going to stick with Polk, but I think this may be another week where we see more of Kendrick Bourne and listen.
That's a good point. I think Kendrick Bourne becoming healthier, Jaylen Polk sort of dying off a little bit instead of letting him figure it out on the field. Maybe there's a little bit of a discrepancy in the reps, but that's the offensive side of the football. I did want to hand it over to you to the defensive side of the football. Now, we talked about this a little bit in our stand-up today down in Foxboro, which you can check out our sort of full evaluation on the matter on Patriots Press Pass. So make sure you check out that video as well. But Mayo mentions lineup shakeups, and the defense letting up 41 points last week, getting gashed in the run game, clearly unacceptable. What do you make of Mayo's comments, and what do you expect to see on the defensive side of the ball that does change moving forward?
Yeah, we're going to touch on some of that stuff tomorrow. We're going to do a key matchups, move away from what we've been doing in the past, where usually we bring a guest on. With the Patriots, they're 1-5 right now, so I know people don't really care about that. We're going to get more into film regarding the Patriots and kind of give you more on that perspective. A little tease. But I think the one that stands out the most is Raekwon McMillan. I also asked Gerard Mayo about the linebackers. He said that they are not playing well enough and that they've got to do better. And Raekwon McMillan is the name that kind of flashes on the billboard for you because he's been a huge liability in the run game. If he doesn't diagnose the play quickly and shoot down and plug the gap, he's usually going to get washed out, or he's going to end up overrunning it. Like outside zone, it's been a couple weeks where it seemed like he overran the play and then they cut back against him for huge gains. Then on gap, like he's just kind of getting manhandled. So I think he could end up getting benched. They've been trying to get Jelani Tavai to play more Mike linebacker like Juwan Bentley, where I think he actually looks pretty good. Like they've had Christian Ellis at weak side linebacker. They've used Sione Takitaki, obviously was activated last week. They've had him in that adjuster role where he plays on the line of scrimmage and off the line of scrimmage. So I think that's what they want to do, is they want to have more, like Christian Ellis has earned his snaps. He's mostly been a dime linebacker, but he's been pretty good there. So I think they're trying to get him some more opportunities on base downs. But really, I think the ideal lineup that they're going to have is probably Jelani Tavai, middle linebacker, Sione Takitaki as that guy who moves on and off on early downs. Christian Ellis is your dime. And then also Keon White. Now, Keon is kind of like Layden Robinson for me, where they're raw. And they make a lot of plays. And it's like, yeah, I see why you like this guy. Like Keon White has made plenty of impactful run stops. But also, if you look at the explosive runs that they've given up, he's at the point of attack almost all the time. A lot of these offenses are attacking that pass rushing defensive end they use in their odd fronts, which is Dietrich Wise or Keon White. Dietrich, you definitely do expect it. Like this has happened for years where he gives you more pass rush and he's good against the run. But if you double him, there's not a whole lot he can do. And with Keon, sometimes it's single blocks where he'll get completely washed out or he'll kind of go upfield rather than hold his ground and shed and go inside. And that's been a pretty consistent issue for him. So I think maybe a lesser role for Keon White on early downs. I really think if you want to unlock him and like play him at his best, he's really an interior pass rusher. That's the best role that he has right now. Still solid as a stand-up outside linebacker or edge on rundowns, but still been very inconsistent. So frankly, I'd like to see on those early downs more of the beefier 3 defensive tackle packages where it's like Godshaw, Jeremiah Farms, Daniel Aquale, or however you want to mix it up, Eric Johnson, Jaquelin Roy in the middle, whatever it is. Like enough of this, like you're not getting pass rush anyway. Keon White's not giving you a ton of pass rush when he's on the field on base downs. Dietrich Wise is giving you some, but it also takes him a while to win. So if you're really worried about the run, and like Tank Bigsby has been one of the most efficient running backs in the NFL, beef up, stop the run. Like we already know you're probably going to get to the passer anyway. Maybe some simulated pressures up the middle. I don't know. But like it's been a consistent problem where they keep running at the same people. So the rest of the defense, I think they've been doing like Godshaw leads the NFL in run stops. He's been playing fantastic. Daniel Aquale has been solid, especially in a bigger role. Jelani Tavai has not been good in coverage, but he has been good as a run stopper. Like most of these guys are doing their jobs and they're doing them well, or like Marte Mapu, where you're kind of being put in a tough spot because he really shouldn't be near the line of scrimmage, but Jabril Peppers, has his situations.
Right.
Raekwon McMillan's the name that stands out for me in terms of guys who might get benched. And that's really pretty much it. Marcus Jones was flagged twice last week. One was BS. Dietrich Wise, who was talking about penalties and discipline and all that, he had an offside penalty that wiped out a third down stop, almost led to score, but the Texans ended up missing the field goal. So, those are the names I'm thinking of, but really it's McMillan that stands out the most and maybe just a lesser role for Keon White.
We will see what happens. Patriots lose 5 straight. Something's got to give as they head over to London. Let's get into the mailbag, Taylor. But before we do, a quick word from our friends over at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. All you got to do is pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Make sure you run your game all season long on PrizePicks. And right now, through the start of the NBA season, there is a free square. Anthony Edwards, more than 1 point. Make sure you add it to your lineups for a free square. It's similar to that Caleb Williams free square we were promoting in September. All Anthony Edwards has to do is score 1 point in their opener for Minnesota, and you win one leg of your lineup. Again, winning up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks, and they put their members first. All withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure, and when your picks hit, you get your money in as little as 15 minutes. So make sure you sign up today, and you will get $50 instantly when you play $5 when using promo code CLNS. Again, download the PrizePicks app, use code CLNS, and get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. All right, here we go, Taylor. Let's do some questions. And again, if you guys have questions, Patriots questions, Jags questions, anything in between, throw them in the chat. We'll try and get to those.
Hey, Beast Mode's here. What's up, Beast
Mode?
Mode?
Hello, Beast Mode. How are you? All right, here we go. Offensive line. We talked about it a little bit on Monday's mailbag. We've talked about it. Really, it's the topic that everybody wants to know about, Taylor. But where do you put the blame on the state of the offensive line? Now, you've been one to not blame the front office and sort of put it on the injuries. But if there is a place to blame, what's wrong with it? Because there's no denying it's in the numbers, it's in the product that their offensive line is not great. And the question says you think offensive line would be a priority with a rookie quarterback. But I think this guy understands that it's not always that simple. So he might be on your side.
Yeah, I mean, I blame the injury bug more than anything. And I know that's not a fun answer, but coaches are usually the first ones where when it comes to injury, they're like, yeah, but we need to play better. Yeah. Scott Peters has acknowledged that Gerard Mayo has acknowledged several times that it's tough. They have a different lineup every single week. Mm-hmm. Now, we've seen Vidarian Lowe and Michael Jordan both far exceed expectation, right? Vidarian Lowe looks like a guy who at first we thought was really just purely a backup. This year, he looks like a legitimate spot starter, maybe even a low-end starter. Honestly, like if he had stayed on the field, who knows how much further he'd get. Michael Jordan hasn't been great, but he's been solid. And this is a guy who was on teams' practice squads for several weeks. Ben Brown right now played so well after getting to the team, not even on Monday. I think he got there on like Wednesday or Thursday. Plays so well, they feel comfortable enough to cut Nick Leverett for whatever reason. We still don't know for sure. Wish we had asked him about that earlier today. But like Ben Brown has been playing pretty well. Obviously, teams have film on him now. Maybe they'll try to exploit him with some, more explosive rushers. Who knows? But you still got a quality performance out of that guy. No unblocked pressures last week for the Patriots. That was the first time all season. A lot of that has to do with Drake May, but also a lot of that's Ben Brown just clogging up the middle. Mm-hmm. Mike Nwenu, has definitely not played as well as you would expect. I don't really know why. It just feels like last week, I know some of their combo blocks with him and Michael Jordan didn't look quite as good. Couldn't really get to the second level very often or pick up those guys when they blitzed, which is tough for a big guy like him. But still, you expect Mike Onwenu to be far from one of your main problems, and I think he's been one of the issues. So we always talk about it like this. Imagine if the offensive line was what it looked like in the beginning of the summer, or like once Vidarian Lowe got into the lineup. We're talking Lowe, City So, David Andrews, maybe, Mike Onwenu, Chuks Okorafor. That's a solid lineup. I really think if that group with chemistry, I think they'd be fine. Would they be great?
Fine's a good word for it.
But I don't think they'd be bottom 10 necessarily. Chuks Okorafor has started games at right tackle. Vidarian Lowe, like we said, has looked good. City's a little bit more of a wild card, and Onwenu, again, isn't playing well. But on paper, you're looking at that lineup and saying, this is pretty damn good. And then when you talk about DeMontre Jacobs, Zach Thomas, guys that they got right after roster cuts who have played pretty significant roles for them relative to what we probably would have expected earlier. So I really just think they've been put in a bad spot. I think you see the flashes of, wow, especially on the left side. When Lowe and Jordan are together, you're like, if we had this every week, I don't think line games are as much of a problem on the left side. You can tell they have a decent feel for how each other work. It literally is night and day when you look at the right side compared to the left when those guys are healthy. So I don't really think it's about putting blame anywhere. I think the front office has genuinely done their best. You can definitely critique some of the things that they did. Not bringing in Jonah Williams was one that we talked about.
Yeah.
We still don't know if he even would have come here. And the injury thing, I think that's a stupid reason to be like, oh, look, what if they had signed him? Because you don't know if he would have gotten injured.
Yeah, right. Butterfly effect. Yeah.
Right. I think he may have a history with an injury. I don't really know too much about that, but butterfly effect. Yeah. So I really think that the injuries have been extremely tough because I think the coaches have done a really good job considering what they've had to deal with. And the front office has done a solid job giving them some players during the season that can play, a functional level of football for them.
I think you can, I guess, critique now the signings of Okorafor and Leverett because they didn't work out. And so did they know Nick Leverett would get hurt or maybe didn't want to be here after what happened last week? Again, we don't know what's going on with him, but he's obviously not on the team anymore. So in theory, not a good signing because he's gone. Same with Chuks Okorafor, where he doesn't want to play here anymore and he leaves. So looking at it now, not good signings. But I think you're right when you say that original starting offensive line without injuries, Lowe, So, Andrews, Onwenu, Chuks, is fine. And could you have done more than that? Sure. But it's not like they didn't try at all. And then, so
that's my big thing.
Critique that first.
They just were like, oh, we're fine on the offensive line. They got more guards when they already had guards.
Right. Critique that first five offensive line, fine. But you can't critique really. You can critique where they are now, but it's not right, I don't think, to put this on the front office because when the injury bug comes through, that's just something you can't really predict and you can't really have happen. Yeah, go.
And one more thing. Also, we always forget about this. People are like, oh, you had Nick Leverett as your backup playing at center. And I understand that was still a new position to him, and he acknowledged that to me. But at the same time, who was the backup center at the beginning of the year or what they expected on paper? It was Jake Andrews.
Yeah, right.
Jake Andrews got hurt. It's like, it's very hard for me to sit here and say, yeah, man, they really were lackadaisical. Last year, I still kind of defended the front office because it was another year where I didn't really love the tackles in free agency, and I feel like a lot of that proved to be right. Tackles in the draft weren't all that good either, really, unless you wanted to get one in the first round. Was it Broderick Jones? He's not even playing well. So, it really, I think the biggest issue for me when we talk about tackle is that they probably could have addressed this years ago when Isaiah Wynn was constantly getting hurt and it was very inconsistent when he was on the field. You could have addressed it 2 or 3 years ago, but you chose not to. That's where and now it's being compounded because you know what? Tackles are hard to find and you had a lot more holes that you had to fill. So, I think they made the effort. You can debate the moves, but yeah, I think injuries have just crushed them. It's been tough.
So with the injuries and with the trade deadline coming up, Taylor, should they panic? And by panic, I mean call the Cleveland Browns, who are seemingly in a fire sale right now, and call about Jedrick Wills or Jack Conklin. This old man mob says Wills is a free agent after this year. Conklin, 30 years old. So do you think they should try and fix this problem through the trade market? Do you think they should sort of just wait and tackle this in the draft next year?
So my buddy Andre Weingarten actually did suggest a couple of interesting options. He suggested trading for Taylor Moton. I think that's how you pronounce his name, from the Panthers, or Colton Miller from the Raiders. Now, both those guys are about 30 years old, but they're good players. Now, Moton, I think, is someone who's more been on the right side. I think Colton Miller can play right or left. If they want to do something like that, maybe re-sign those guys to the next, extend them maybe to like 2 more years on their contract, so you got some time to, build that rapport. I'd like that. I don't know about the tackles. So Jack Conklin's always hurt, bro. Unless it's like a conditional 6th round pick, I'm not biting on that. And then Jedrick Wills, I don't know. If they want to get rid of Jedrick Wills, I think that's a red flag. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like,
of course.
He's a young player. If you're willing to trade him before his contract is up, as a team that you have Juwan Jones, but he's not a left tackle. I think that if that were to happen, I'd be like, why do you want to get rid of him so bad? You know, so I don't love that idea either.
And this sort of goes to this question here, and I want to kind of wrap up the offensive line talk because it gets stale, and I think we all know that this offensive line isn't that good. They, again, you can argue if they did their best or not in free agency, whatever, but it's not good and it needs to be fixed. So, do you think they should fill offensive line through the draft? Should they do that through veterans next season? I know it's only August or October 16th, but we did mock draft talk. The Patriots are 1-5. They're probably not playing for much this year. So looking ahead to next season, what position should they fill through the draft, and what should they try to fill through veterans next offseason?
I'm going to kind of cop out on this because, one, I don't really know the draft prospects very well. And two, we don't even know what veterans are going to hit free agency and, those situations. So I'm kind of going to punt on this, but I will say the positions I want them to fill, period. Because I don't really care if it's an experienced guy or what. Like, you just need talent. So I would say left tackle and wide receiver, those need to obviously be your absolute top priorities. So just get players who you think can be instant contributors. That's the bottom line. Like, receiver, you need a true X. Then you need a left tackle. Maybe Caden Wallace, they start repping him at left. But, whatever happens there, I would rather just have him at right tackle. Like, you have another swing at it. Just get a guy who's been there for his entire career, so you don't have to worry about the whole switching sides thing. Then cornerback and I think edge are huge, huge areas they're going to have to fill.
Cornerback, so Travis Hunter.
Cornerback, I think, is one where you either get a veteran or you can maybe get like a mid-round pick. Because I don't think it has to be like a dude, but I think you need someone with size who can hang with some of the bigger receivers. Because, like, you got Marco Wilson, you got Isaiah Bolden, they got size, but, like, they're kind of just guys right now. They're not really dudes or anything like that. Marcus Jones, he's a dude in the slot. Gonzo, obviously a dude on that one bookend, but John Jones might not even play next season. So that might be a whole edge. We already know, like, they need to do something. I don't know if Joshua Uche is going to be here next year. So I think edge rusher maybe is one of your earlier draft picks, like 3rd round, unless you can get a veteran on the market who fits your scheme. But yeah, those are really the big ones. Like, I think you got to address those 2 premium positions on both sides of the ball. But for the defense, I think you can maybe wait till the middle rounds or get a free agent. But when it comes to receiver and tackle, like, those need to be guys who can come in and immediately be very sizable contributors for you.
I think so too. Wide receiver, tackle 1 and 2. They sort of hit on wide receiver with the 2nd round pick this year in Jaylen Polk, and they obviously go with Baker as well. But you still need sort of that tier 1 A1 guy, and whether that be through signing a veteran or through the draft, well, I guess we'll see what happens. Like you said, you don't exactly know who's going to come up, who's going to be available on the trade market, if T. Higgins is going to stay franchised again, if they let him test the market. So there's a ton of factors, but I think obviously tackle, wide receiver 1 and 2, cornerback as well. And I want to kind of tie Jonathan Jones, as you mentioned that, into this next question, because you don't know if John Jones is going to play next year. He's 31 years old. He's, I believe he was on the injury report again today with an injury. He's someone who's been sort of banged up, but he's also somebody, Tayler, that I think they could dangle on the trade market if they do want to be sellers here. So do you see the Patriots entering the trade market? Should they trade older players like Kendrick Bourne, who was, dangled in the Brandon Ayuk trade discussions? He's somebody they could potentially trade out. Jonathan Jones as well. And the question comes in as the guy saying that, these guys do deserve to play now and compete for titles now. They're at the back end of their career. So I will just answer this one first and say that I do think Jonathan Jones is someone who maybe could be potentially out there if a team's looking for a cornerback. I know it stinks. He's been a guy here forever, and someone who been a leader here, won a Super Bowl, won a couple Super Bowls, I believe, and has been a Patriot for life. But if you can get something for him, similar to my stance on like Matthew Judon, where if he's not in your plans beyond this season, then trade him. I think Jonathan Jones could be a potential guy in that mix as someone who they could try and get something for and try and build towards the future.
I think they need to retain John Jones because I think they're losing so many leaders on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
Like right now, we don't know what's going to happen, obviously, but like they don't have Peppers. They lost Juwan Bentley. Like, I know that Jonathan Jones is more in that Kyle Duggar mold where they're more quiet leaders, but we've heard Mike Pellegrino freaking raves about Jonathan Jones.
Yeah.
I also, frankly, selfishly would like to see him retire as a Patriot because, again, he may not even play next season. I don't know that I trade him, especially because I don't think the depth behind him is very good. Like, yes, you want to get pieces for the future, but also you want to be competitive. And I think if you trade John Jones, you're throwing Marco Wilson out there, and then maybe Isaiah Bolden, who's barely played for whatever reason, probably because he hasn't earned more of a role. Sure. I think if he was doing it behind the scenes and playing well, then we would see him get some role maybe over Marco Wilson. So I wouldn't like Jonathan Jones. Kendrick Bourne, we know that they were thinking about floating him in a trade with Brandon Ayuk. If you were going to trade Kendrick Bourne, it would have to be for that kind of like difference-making wide receiver, because I do not think, I think the energy that he brings really is pretty significant, although Drake May's confidence in his swagger obviously helps. But like we've already mentioned it. It's not, if Jalen Polk isn't going to play, all right, then like who's it going to be?
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's a lot more thin than I thought it would be a little bit earlier this season or maybe in the summer. So are there guys they could trade away? I'm looking at the roster now. It's kind of the same problem as last year. You don't have a lot of players that people would probably want. And the ones that you do have, you don't really have the depth to just be getting rid of them because you wouldn't have a competitive enough roster or situation at that spot. So are there any names that stand out to you? I don't see anybody who I would think any team would be knocking on their door for that they could also afford to lose.
I think mine's Jonathan Jones. And the only reason I know I guess can't afford to lose him, but I mean, maybe it's not the mindset that the team's in, but my mindset on it is, okay, so what? You have to mend the fence for the rest of the season with Marco Wilson and Isaiah Bolden. Like, you're 1-5 and you're not playing for anything this season anyway. So if you can get a decent pick for him, okay, Gonzo takes on the first guy and you figure it out with the rest of them. Marcus Jones is playing decent football as well. So figure it out and get to the end of the season and you get something out of Jonathan Jones. That's really my thought on it. But besides that, I don't want Kendrick Bourne to be gone. They signed him to a 3-year deal for a reason. I think they see him as a in here for not just the short term, but a little bit more so of the long term too, as they get through this rebuild. But I do think Jonathan Jones is one guy. Besides that, I don't really see many other huge trade chips for them.
Yeah, same way.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you're not a very good team.
Exactly. All right. Word from Game Time before we wrap this thing up with a couple more of your questions. And if you head over to Game Time right now, the exclusive ticketing partner of the CLNS Media Network, you can get into Wembley Stadium on Sunday out in London for as little as $102. So if you plan on taking the trip across the pond but haven't bought your tickets yet, make sure you head over to Game Time and use code CLNS. Get $20 off your first purchase there. Terms apply. They have the Game Time Picks feature, and it filters out the fluff to show you only the incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. You can also see your seat view right on the app. Not all of the ticketing apps do that, but the Game Time app does. So before you click purchase, you can see exactly what the field is going to look like. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time and Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it, Taylor?
Game time.
It is game time. All right, couple more. I am going to go to the chat because there were a couple decent questions in there, and then we can wrap up with some of the preloaded questions. If you just give me 1 second. I had one. Here we go. Do you believe Ramondre will play this week, Taylor? Now, the injury report did just come out. He was a DNP with that foot injury, and I would say that I'm led to believe that that injury was a little bit worse than they let on at first, only because he didn't practice all week last week. He was ruled out early on Friday when realistically they were the home team, so they didn't have to rule him out till Sunday. They could have sort of let him work through it. They did not have to rule him out because they weren't traveling, right? So it wasn't like he didn't get on the plane, so he's not playing. They could have tried to work him through Sunday, but they knew Friday he ain't playing. After the game, he said it was fine. I feel like that was also him talking out of adrenaline because he had just got rolled up upon. He went back out there and continued to play. Obviously, I'm sure the thing swelled up like a balloon after that game the other day. But still no practice today for Ramondre. So I wonder if they do end up having to continue with Antonio Gibson as their lead back.
Yeah, I'll kind of lump this in, and we can talk about the injury report because it came out while we were streaming. Ramondre did not participate today with the foot injury. I would lean towards no, honestly, because it's going to quick turnaround this week. They're flying to London tomorrow, I think. That's a lot to ask of him, which stinks. But also, I think the Jaguars have one of the better run defenses in the NFL. One of the things we're going to talk about in the preview tomorrow. I think this is the week that you do air it out with Drake May.
Yep.
And then also did not participate. Marcus Jones wasn't there. We didn't know why at first. We now know it was because of a groin injury as well as an illness. Vidarian Lowe, ankle, did not participate. Gerard Mayo said he didn't know if Vidarian Lowe was going to practice, but he did kind of leave the door open to potentially playing this weekend. Some other guys that stood out on the injury report, no additions other than Drake May.
Drake May. Drake
May. Knee injury, but he was a full participant. Maybe he'll have like a brace or something on. Who knows how serious it is? Like I don't think he had anything on during practice.
No, he didn't.
Yeah, it's not anything that serious again because he was a full participant. Did we know that Devon Gotcha had an elbow injury? Was that new?
Yeah, he was on there last week with that.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, those are the big ones. Marcus Jones, Ramondre Stevenson. I do not think Ramondre is going to play this week.
Sneaky big one for me is just that Kendrick Bourne has been upgraded to a full participant.
Good call. Yes.
He was limited ever since coming back off of PUP. He was listed on the report and was questionable heading into last Sunday. We knew he was going to play, but he was still sort of working back. Full participant tells me they're looking to continue increasing his workload, which means, like we were talking about earlier, maybe less snaps for Jaylen Powell if they sort of ring it out that way. So, yeah, I'm with you, though, on Mondre. I don't see him playing on Sunday either. All right, we'll get a few more in here, Taylor, before we get out of here. Here we go. Another trade question. Should the Patriots try and trade Josh Uche or Dietrich Wise to the Lions with Aiden Hutchinson being out for the rest of the season? I don't know what they could get for a return on some of these guys. I'm not a specialist in this, but I don't hate the idea of dangling a couple of those guys to the Lions, who are seemingly all of a sudden in need for some pass rush.
Yeah, I'm looking up Uche's numbers right now because I don't think he's been very productive as a pass rusher the past couple of weeks because he's been more disciplined, and then he kind of had that effect there. Dietrich Wise, again, this is what the leadership thing. Like I think they need as many defensive leaders as they can. I feel like Dietrich Wise is one of those players who's much more valuable to the Patriots than he is anybody else. Like I agree with Aiden Hutchinson is one of the most explosive humans in the NFL. Dietrich Wise is a bigger guy. It's just not his skill set. He's slower, but really his game is more about power and technique. So I don't really think that they'd be interested in him. Joshua Uche, now pass rushing, yeah. So in 2 of the last 3 weeks, he's had a pressure rate under 10%. He had 5.6 against the Niners, 13.3 against the Dolphins, but that was only 2 pressures. And those pressures were, real quick, those pressures were the first one was really more effort. That was his sack where he ended up going all the way around and chased down Huntley. And the other one was actually against a running back. He went inside the tackle, took a blitzer, and he ended up on a running back. So I don't think any team is going to be looking at Joshua Uche in terms of his numbers or the tape that he's put up and think, wow, we got to bring this guy in. Here's the more telling thing. He's had one pressure in week 4, 2 in week 5, and then 1 last week. So for a designated pass rusher, that's not very good. Obviously, he's been a little bit better against the run, not as much of a liability when he's on the field. But, yeah, I don't know who's going to really see those guys and be like, we have to bring them in.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I also think listening to Dan Campbell over the last couple of days, they seem fully committed to filling Now, granted, it's impossible to replace a guy like Aiden Hutchinson, right? He's one of the best pass rushers, one of the best defensive linemen in the entire sport. But they seem pretty gung-ho on patching it up with what they have. And the Lions are deep. As much as Aiden Hutchinson is important to that defense, their offense is filthy. The rest of their defense is still really good. And I think they're going to be just fine, and they'll try and make it work without him, and they seem committed to doing so. I don't see there was a report that they maybe kicked the tires on trading for Hassan Reddick, who, I mean, you bring that guy in, you don't know if he's going to even play for you. It's happening to the Jets right now, but I think they're going to be fine moving forward without Aiden Hutchinson for now. All right, I want to wrap it up on this one, Taylor. Continuing on with the Patriots defensive line, do you expect to see more of Jaquelin Roy play more snaps? He was pretty good last week. He was good the week before too. Somebody who is all of us. And you mentioned too using some more 3 defensive lineman sets for the Patriots. You think they could rotate Roy in there and kind of let him wreak havoc up front?
Yeah. So unfortunately, the one play from the last game that sticks out to me is when he tried to tackle Dameon Pierce with his shoulder.
Mhm.
That was
that was
really
tough.
the only significant blemish. Like, really, Jaquelin Roy has played well the last 2 weeks. Hasn't been perfect, but he has had impact plays. Back-to-back sacks, both examples of great effort on his part. He's been pretty sturdy in the middle of the defense at that nose tackle spot, has allowed Devon Gottschall to play more odd defensive end where he's one-on-one against, guards and tackles, and they cannot block that dude one-on-one. Again, huge credit to him. He has 18 run stops this season, most in the NFL for any player. But yeah, I think definitely. I thought it was surprising that Eric Johnson hasn't played the past 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Considering he played much better against the 49ers than he did the week before against that was the Jets. Is that against the Jets? I think so.
Yeah, that sounds right.
This is the point in the season where we start to blend together a little bit, and I don't know what happened, when, where, why.
Yeah, you almost had this thing titled the Texans Week Mailbag earlier on, if I didn't catch it.
Yeah, thank you for that. But yeah, no, I do think we'll see more Jaquelin Roy. The coaching staff seems to like him, and he's putting some good stuff on tape. So it's been really cool to see him, fill that role. And another tip of the cap to Elliott Wolf, man. Some of these in-season acquisitions have been pretty good for them.
Yeah.
I know they're depth pieces, so no one really wants to shine a light on them or give them credit, but I can't really think of too many personnel moves that they've made where I'm just like, ugh, what is this? What are we doing here? I'll say it if I feel it, but I won't say anything actually. Rather, if I think they made a mistake, I tend to just be like, you know what, I didn't agree with it, and if I'm not talking about it, that's how you know I didn't like it. But I've really liked a lot of the moves that they have made.
Yeah, Ben Brown is the big one before we got here. The fact that he's come in essentially allowed them to cut Nick Larvette and move forward with him for the time being as they figure out that center position. He was really solid last week, so kudos to them for finding that guy, sort of a diamond in the rough there. So that's going to do it for us here, Taylor, on this Mailbag Wednesday on Patriots Daily. We'll be back tomorrow for some more podcasting. We're going to preview Patriots versus Jaguars with some film. So make sure you keep it here for that as the Patriots head over to London tomorrow afternoon. Yeah, Taylor, what do you got?
I just wanted to say, and for the film rooms, so we're really trying to lean more towards those. It's probably not going to be as much on my end, at least. Going to be maybe less written content. I'm going to put more of my time into these film breakdowns. So if you guys have anything you want to see, any recommendations, anything like that, please put them in the comments. We want to make these as good for you guys as we can, as easy to digest and all that stuff. So any comments, questions, concerns, whatever you guys have, let us know. They'd be greatly appreciated. Yeah, and your support also on those has been fantastic.
Yeah, we appreciate it. We're working hard on those. So yeah, throw any and all critiques, comments in the comment section. Feel free to tweet at us as well if you guys have anything that we can improve on in these film breakdowns as we try and bring you the best Patriots content as possible moving forward. So Taylor, thanks for joining me. Thanks for doing this. We'll be back, like I said, tomorrow here on Patriots Press Pass. So rate, review, and subscribe to the channel. Like the video. And check everything else we got going on at clnsmedia.com. Until tomorrow, thank you everybody so much for joining us here on Patriots Daily. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and we will see you next time. Peace out, everyone. I don't know where Taylor went, but bye, guys.